like a diamond, light 'em up in the dark. We know who we are, we're a big bright spark.
Hi, welcome to the Voices Talk Show. Today we are going to be talking about immigration, and I really wanted to get into this conversation because it's so important, especially in this particular political climate. Today my panel is with me, and I want to go ahead and give them a moment to introduce themselves.
I'm Catherine Scholler Kliewer. I'm a retired Spanish instructor, and I also am an adult basic education ESL instructor.
I'm Julie Desautels. I am an ESL tutor, and I also work with Life Connections, a group here in town that helps parenting families get the resources they need.
And my name is MaElena Gutierrez, and I am member of Asamblea de Derechos Civiles. I am a co-founder and community organizer in this organization, and I am also a member of St. Joseph's Church.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And my name is Patty Keeling. I am also a co-founder with Asamblea de Derechos Civiles, the Assembly of Civil Rights. I belong to St. Joseph's Church in Wake Park, and we work a lot with the Latino community there.
Okay. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you guys being part of this discussion. I think it's such an important discussion to be having. I personally have a connection with immigration because I was raised by first-generation immigrants. My parents are both from Haiti. My mom is a legal alien. My dad is an American citizen now, and they went through the process in the 90s. And so I remember having this conversation with a lot of people in the Haitian community who also were going through struggles in terms of immigration because it's not the easiest process to go through.
I think, we work with many undocumented immigrants in our organization. I think everyone is fearful at this point because of our administration issues and how they're being treated and talked about so extremely. And so it's instilling a lot of hate, I think, in communities, especially people that don't understand what's going on. I think that's a valuable thing, is to learn more about our neighbors, our friends, our co-workers, anybody in the community. I think that's valuable, and I think this is a good way to at least touch that.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are about immigration in our community?
Well, I think in Alexandria, it's just lack of understanding that there is immigration, even. Mm-hmm. It's so, it's, except for the ethnic restaurants, and maybe the farms, some people might be aware of that people work on farms. I don't think they understand there's a lot of immigration here in Alexandria.
At our office, we, for a long time, served everyone who came, but we noticed more and more people who were speaking Spanish. And so we were able to apply for a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health and hire a translator. And once we did that, it exploded. We just were not aware that there was such a community in Alexandria and the surrounding region too.
And other misconceptions are too, that the immigrants doesn't pay taxes. And that is big because undocumented people doesn't receive benefit, but they pay everything that every citizen pay. Like they pay Social Security, pay taxes, federal taxes and state taxes.
I understand that, because I think the misconception is that because you don't have a social security number, then you have an ITN number. Am I correct?
Yeah, we have the IT number.
And that feeds into the same system that a
Yes.
social security number would, and you're actually paying just as many taxes, except you're not receiving the benefits that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that another issue right now is that people just want to know, are people coming in legally or illegally? I assume that illegal immigration is the big concern. What do you think about that in terms of our community? How do you feel like I feel like there's things that we don't really understand and know as American people in general.
I think most people come with a visa. The majority of the people come with a visa, and they overstay their visas, which, you know, is very easy to do once you become connected to a community. You know, your life is here now and not back there. So I think that's a really big misconception. I mean, and so then people target and say that our immigrants are criminals.
The fear of living in that kind of culture in those countries, it translates when people come here. I had an incident where a man called me and said, the police are at my door. And it was very cold in January, and it was New Year's Day, I think, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't drive the 30 minutes it would take me to get there. And he said, the police are at my door, I'm worried it's immigration. And it turned out they went and eventually the situation was resolved. He had worked at in his cleaning job, he had found a cell phone, and the phone was really desired by the owner, so they called the police, and the police were looking for a phone. But he had such fear of the police, you know, from his background, that it was a bad situation, and he eventually moved because of the fear.
I think with our organization, we do a lot of know your rights trainings, because the majority of immigrants don't think they have any rights.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very big, you know, and also we teach them that when someone comes to the door like that, not to let the children open the door, or not, you know, and maybe even be silent, you know. But if they do know that you're there, if they can slide something under the door for you, that you can look at to understand why they're there, that helps a lot.
Yeah. Even in preparing for this episode, I actually had a really hard time even finding someone who would be comfortable talking about their situation if they were currently illegal. And I think people don't realize right now, a lot of people are hiding. A lot of people, especially in our community, are in fear of what's going to happen to them or their families, because what happens at the top does trickle down to the bottom. And I think that we don't realize like how painful it is. And I think because the media is so focused on all of the drama that's surrounding the topic, that we're losing the humanity behind who these people are.
Yeah, and I want to mention too about the fear. The fear about is about immigrants has a lot of fear, but also the Americans has a lot of fear too. Because what they heard on the news, they are afraid about the immigrants, and many of the immigrants, immigrants are not causing the terrorist part, terrorists, and immigrants are here for work. And like in my experience, I am here trying to have more people know more about us and find out like we are not here for doing things bad. We are here because better life. Families, our kids are born here, and they have the same the people immigrate many years ago is the same thing that and now that they are born here, our kids are too, they born here. So there is too, like Patty mentioned about people that come here to they come to visit and they stay over, and people who have come undocumented, people think like people is criminal. Is what the media said, is what people who's against immigrants is what they are telling other people. But people who cross the border is not a criminal, it's a civil offense, not a criminal offense.
Yes.
Like, it's why we don't have the lawyers, it's simple when people go to a court, they ask for a lawyer. They can ask for a lawyer, but the lawyers are like the court doesn't provide a lawyer for them. They don't provide a lawyer because this is a civil offense. Like, it's not a criminal offense. It's like when somebody commit a crime,
You can get a public defender. I didn't realize that.
It's interesting. Is that why we see small children in court representing themselves sometimes in the media?
And that's definitely something I don't think people realize, that there's so many fees associated with being an immigrant, and it's not just taxes. I have a friend who is currently going through a situation in our community who less than a few days ago was just saying it was just trying to work on retaining a lawyer. Overnight she had to retain a lawyer for $6,000 and come up with that. And for people who are not from our country, who do not have access the way most Americans do, that is, you're giving them no opportunity to actually be legal, to do what they need to do to go through the system. I think people are so used to the idea that you just apply to something in your country and you come here in a few days and it's just that simple. And it's not. It's not at all black and white. It's not at all a system that works for everybody. I think race, of course, definitely plays a big part in it. But I think that we have to start understanding that everybody deserves the right to have a fair and happy life. And we are a country of immigrants. The Puritans came from England for that purpose exactly. And how is it 2019 and we're now losing the focus that our country was actually built on?
It takes a lot of courage to leave your homeland.
Yes.
And to come to a strange place where you don't know the language. It's just a dream, a hope in your head. And I really think that the community would benefit through stories.
Yes.
I'm a strong believer in the power of stories. And just when I've spoken to groups of people, small groups of people, and you hear the kind of sentiments you were saying, but then I will tell them a story of one of my clients, how they got to this country, and it's all of a sudden it humanizes the situation. Instead of being the scary them, it's that's not right. You know, it just, I guess hearing people's stories might change hearts.
Yeah.
I think too, this is interesting, and I cannot remember the representative's name from Hutchinson, but he said on the driver's license issue, when that was brought forward, he changed and voted for it as a Republican, voted for the driver's license because he heard the stories.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's a big key. And he said, keep telling the stories.
Yes.
Go to the offices, tell the stories, you know.
So we've discussed a lot about hearing the stories. What are the stories or the story that you feel sticks out to you?
One of the stories that we have is we were called to the Glenwood Hospital because a young woman, and I mean young, she hadn't even turned 18 yet, had just given birth and she had no car seat. And so I drove down there and did the education through an interpreter. And it turns out that this young woman's story was she was pregnant in Nicaragua and she did not want her child born there because there were so many gangs in that town. And so she paid a coyote $1,000 or better to get her up from there to our border. And he did not give her food. He did not give her water. So this pregnant girl took that long trip. At the border, they saw that she was in distress, and so they did let her come. And we were able to help her in many different ways. But it was just, she was this young child. And so to hear people talk or to categorize undocumented people as criminals, it was like, no, this was a little girl from a rural area who just wanted a good life for her child. And that was a very, very impactful situation for me.
I agree.
I think that we have an issue with just realizing what all of that entails. I think we don't hear enough of those stories. We don't hear enough about what actual people are feeling and going through, but people aren't just hurting, they're suffering. They're suffering on American soil because of American politics and logistics that are going on right now. What can we do as a community to combat that, to help people in our community, especially who is in fear?
I think, the children suffer extreme amount. I would love to see that there be more done with the children. They're afraid to speak in school because of what people are calling them or saying to them. I think, that would be a real tribute to their health and well-being. If there could be more counseling with the children to deal with these issues, more legal aid in that sense.
Thank you so much for being with me here today and doing this. It was such an opportunity to really shine a light on something that I think is really necessary right now. It's a very important conversation, and you all played such an amazing role in bringing out that conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Voices. Next week we will be speaking about white privilege, and I want you to go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you can be updated on every new episode. Thank you.
Shine like a diamond, light 'em up in the dark. We know who we are, we're a big bright spark. We know how to take the lead and we aren't afraid. Shake up all the rules, pretend like they will never